You've created your first AI Agentic reg. Great. But now, in production, you know you're going to need to read thousands and thousands and thousands of documents. How are you going to do this? How are you going to test? What gotchas may you encounter? Well, I've got you. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kirk, and as mentioned, we're going to create a more robust agentic reg. We're going to use Azure AI Search as our vector database. And we're going to do something that closely resembles something you would actually do in production. That is, load thousands and thousands of documents. I'm going to show you how I would load thousands of documents and what gotchas you may encounter. Then I'll show you, once we're in production, how we would test this and how we would monitor and use observability. Now, we've already covered the basics, so let's just jump right into it. Hello, everyone. Okay, since we're going to be creating an AI agent using AI Azure Search, let's go ahead and create our search resource. So let's go in here. I'm keeping everything in the same resource group. Let's call this reports search. Is that name available? Yes, it is. Because these names have to be unique. I'm going to put in the East region. Remember, this is expensive. So if you're following along, you want to watch your costs and you want to delete your resources after, which is what I've been doing. So let's go ahead and let's just go and create this. And again, like we've gone over this. I did this in another demo, my first demo with reg using this with an LLM. Okay, that came up pretty quickly. But last time we did this pretty quickly and I didn't go behind the scenes of what actually happens when you start importing and creating your reg database, create a vector database. And that's what I want to show you now. Preliminary stuff, just like last time. I created a storage account here and I have one report here. I'm going to explain why I only have one. But what we're going to do is we're going to read in these PDFs and it's going to create a vector database with the embeddings, and it's actually going to chunk the data, because that's what happens when you create a vector database. That's what you should be doing, and creating those vectors on certain chunks. And I'm going to show you that. So we have that. This is my storage account I created. And also, as you know, in our Azure AI Foundry, we have to create the embedding model. We have to deploy it. So I've already gone ahead and done that. This is the text embedding 3 small model, which we will use for embedding. Okay, we're back in our search here. So let's go ahead and create our vector database. And we can select our storage account. And let's see what happens. Again, we're going to see what happens behind the scenes when we start creating our reg database. So let's go ahead and do that. Our storage account, remember I showed you, we just created one here. And in that one container called report, we have that Nike report that I just grabbed from the internet. Do that. Everything else we're fine with right now. Okay, so now we have to pick our model to actually do the embeddings. I'm here, so I had to switch this because that's where it's deployed. And I have it on my AI Agents product. Yes, that resource. And then that text embedding 3 small, which I already showed you as well. I'm going to leave this as API key. I should say we should be using in production system identity and managed identity. I will show you where this key gets stored. This might have some costs, of course. We don't have any images, so we're just going to be doing text. Create that. Semantic ranker, yes, we're going to be needing that. I'm going to show you this stuff as well. Let's go ahead. Let's give it more report demo. Okay, now let's go ahead and create this. Oh, that was actually pretty quick. Start searching. So we have this Nike report. We can test it here. About Nike earnings. Or maybe I'll just, because this isn't really an agent, let's just say Nike earnings, and let's see what it says here. Okay, so it hasn't gotten anything yet because it's still indexing this, creating the index. So let's wait a second. Let's see if I refresh. Let's come back in a second. Okay, that loaded. As you can see, we have 261 documents. Size is pretty small. That's from that one PDF. And here's this PDF, which I've downloaded from the internet. I just wanted to show you it. So now we can actually search here to make sure this is working. Nike earnings. And we have some data back. What this is going to pull back, okay, from the reg database. And you can see the first thing it gets back here and the scores and the vector, the text vector, which it created. This is, I think, 1,536, the size of this vector, which is what the text embedding 3 small creates the vector size by default. So that's there. I want to show you what actually gets created for us. So we go in the JSON editor. This shows you what the index looks like. You can see that we have these chunk IDs, parent ID, the actual chunk itself, what data is in there, the title, and the vector itself. So that's what gets stored, and then we have our configuration for the semantic search, which we're going to do. In here, we have something with the API key. Remember, I told you we're using embedding 3 small, the API key, it's stored here. So again, in production, we probably want to use managed identity. We don't want to store keys here, but this is what gets built up. Okay, why am I showing you all this? That is because for me, or in production, in your environment, you're probably going to load up a lot of documents in Azure Search. You're not going to go through here and click on this import and vectorize, because this here, we don't know what's going on. And I showed you a little bit what's going on, but it's still a bit of black box. And you might hit on rate limits, getting 429 errors because remember, you're hitting that embedding endpoint and you'll hit limits if you have a lot of PDFs in your container. So I'm just creating one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a program, load reports here, that will go into our endpoints, our search endpoints, our OpenAPI endpoints. Actually, I don't need the blog here because I changed this, but it's going to go in there. I'll show you this. And what I'm doing is I'm going to read in a PDF from the internet, and I'm going to split this. I'm going to read it and split it into chunks. I actually created another tutorial where I showed you how to create a reg with Mongo. I'll have that in the link as well. But we're obviously using Azure Search here. But we're just doing this behind the scenes. Obviously, I've gone in here and created my environment variables. So for search, we have our URL endpoint, our index name, and to get the key, we can go in here, go into keys, get that, and put this all in our configuration file for the search endpoint, and then also from our API, our OpenAPI endpoint here. So again, this is just one PDF. I'm going to load in a few because someone asked me, how does this work with a lot of PDFs? And of course, in production, you're going to have a lot of text files, whatever it is, PDFs, CSV files, whatever. You're having a big reg database and you want to see how this performs. So I'm going to load in a few PDFs here. Again, we can control what goes on. Remember, I showed you the chunk ID, the title. We're creating our embedding. So what we're doing is we're just calling our OpenAPI endpoint. We're creating our chunk size, because once you start investigating this stuff, you'll want to test against your embeddings, like how good is the semantic search working, and your actual chunk size. You might want to play with this, the chunk size and the overlap. I'm setting it as 400. This is stuff you want to test. And going in here, creating the chunk. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Okay, I forgot to mention in our code, the get embedding. Remember I told you might hit 429 errors. We're just going in here when we're hitting the OpenAPI endpoint for embedding. Just keep on trying it again. And actually, when we're doing this in batch uploads as well, where is that part? So when we're actually getting our PDF, creating our chunks, and we're going to upload everything in batches. Again, this is something else you can play with when you're in production. This is just a demo, but let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. So Python 3. Yeah, I already have my virtual environment. Python 3 load reports. .py. And let's see. So this might take a little bit of time. Okay, so there it is. It's going and uploading our documents to our search index. So let's go in here. And let's see this. Of course, it's still at 261 right now. And you can see this is just for one PDF. This is taking a bit of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here. Well, first I'll show you what happens after this one gets done. And then I'm going to load in a few more PDFs. And then we're going to go into Azure AI Foundry and start playing and hooking this up to our agent. Okay, that's still uploading, but I actually want to show you one thing. Another thing, hopefully you guys know about this, but because this is costly, I just want to show you, I'm always monitoring my costs here. So in Azure, I'm going into cost analysis because the search costs $250 a month. So every time I'm done, I want to make sure I delete it. But I usually like to go in here and see how much this is costing me per day. So as you can see, yesterday I was rehearsing for this demo, and it cost me, I live in Canada, it's $15, but I'm making sure I'm deleting my resources. But you can see this adds up, but I just wanted to show you that. Okay, that finally finished. As you can see, we uploaded 3,850 documents. Again, it's because I'm doing it in small chunks, and I'm also controlling the speed so we don't hit those rate limits. This code, I'll have my GitHub repo, so you can go ahead and play with this. And okay, back into Azure Search. We can see we have 4,000 documents. Again, because I control those chunk sizes, I made them a bit smaller. I can see what's going on now. So let's do a search. This was on JP Morgan. JP earnings. Let's do a search to make sure this is fine. Yep, so we have it because that was the PDF that I got back. So we're getting some answers, and I just want to show you the values. There's our first chunk ID. The parent ID I just left blank, but there's the chunk that it's actually getting first. There it says earnings, the number, the title. I just have this PDF title that I grabbed from the internet. That's what I threw in through my code. And there's our text vector. And again, just in this code here, that's the title, the content, the vector, that's everything I'm setting. The title here is from the metadata from the PDF, which is just the source URL. And that's where I'm reading it from. But I just want to show you that. So we can control the chunk size. I think this is 400 characters or tokens. Yeah, pretty small. But this is the stuff you want to play with and you want to start thinking about, because it's great to be an AI engineer. And I'm glad you're learning all this stuff, but let's open it up and see what's going on behind the scenes a little bit with our reg database. Okay, as you can see, I've loaded a few more PDFs, a few more documents. Still not a lot, but it's enough to test on. Again, for you guys in production, you'll probably have a lot more documents, but I'm just one person giving a demo. So I can't be sitting here loading thousands of documents, but I wanted to show you what you would do in production. So we have a few here. Now let's go back to Azure AI Foundry and let's go to our agent now. And let's hook this up. So I already created an agent here. Let's go to the playground. And I've already gave it the system prompt here. You are an agent that helps people get information about reports. And right now we don't have any knowledge base here. I already created the action. Remember, from my last demo, we have to create this action here to actually allow the tool to hook up to the knowledge base. But let's just try this. Tell me about Apple's earnings. I think I put Apple in there as a report, a PDF. Well, right now it's not tied up to knowledge base. So obviously this is not going to find anything. And that's exactly what it says. So let's tie this up. Okay, so let's go in the knowledge and let's add Azure AI Search that are not part of this project. I've been playing around. So we created this, what did we call it again? oh yeah, so we have to go in here, connect to another database. So we just created this report search, AI search resource. So let's add the connection, do an API key authentication. Let's go, we created this reports. So I'm gonna just give this reg reports. I think I already have a name there, so I'm gonna have to give this a unique name. Is that good? Yes. We're doing semantic search, only semantic. We're gonna get 5 back, and let's connect it. So now we have it. Let's give this a test again. Tell me about Apple. Actually, let's do Apple's earnings. Actually, let's do JP Morgan earnings. Okay, maybe this is not tied in yet. Let's see. So we can go in here and we can start debugging. Yeah, this doesn't look like it's doing the Azure Search, retrieve 5 documents. Wait, it has something here. Let's go. Let's try this again. Let me refresh. There. Okay, so it has Apple's earnings there. That's great. And remember, I told you that if it can't find it from the reg database, give an error saying I don't know. Let's try give me JP Morgan's earnings. Yeah, so now it has it. And we can go in here, look at the run info, the Azure search. You can see the documents that got back, and the message it created. Wait, oh yeah, that was the one before. Yeah, this is fine. And we can see that it's getting JP Morgan and from the report that we uploaded and got some data back. So we are good. Now, let's go into how we would use this in production and set up tracing as well and observability, because that's what you're going to want to really do once you start going to production, seeing how this works, probably on your staging environment first, and really play with it. So I'll show you that now. Okay, so we're done with the playground. Now it is time to go into tracing. I hope you watched my other tutorial on observability and debugging agents. I'll have the link in the description so you can go ahead and watch that. But here, I already tested this a little bit, but we created an app to tie in and give us some trace results back from what we're typing, what we're sending to our agent. So here's the program. Again, this is in the other tutorial. So if you want the code to look at this, but basically this is just hitting my endpoint and my agent, and we are just sending the results, and we've set up our trace spans. So open telemetry stuff, and we created a trace and a span so we can debug. So think about this. This is in production. We can see all of what prompts are being created and what the tool is returning, because this is stuff that you want to do. So it's great to create agents, but to be an AI engineer, you have to really know your stuff and be a software engineer and start debugging. So let's go ahead and run this. Again, this is the same thing that what we did in the playground. So now we can ask, tell me about Apple's earnings. Yes, so we got a result back. Apple reported significant earnings. Another thing is, you'll probably want to evaluate this. I haven't really covered eval pipelines, grounding your responses, but that'll be in another lesson. But now that we have the result back, and remember, again, from that other tutorial, we're putting all of our inputs and outputs and everything in the tracing. So this might, you don't want to do this in production, as I outlined in the other tutorial, because for compliance and security reasons. Watch that other tutorial. But now we can go into tracing. Let's refresh this. And we can see, so we have tell us about Apple's earnings. And you'll see what we've done here. And we can see the tool call. And we see what we get back, which is great once you start debugging in production. But you can see all the messages and what comes back. So where is the message that it creates after? Yes, so this is the value you get back. And you can see the latency. This is a bit slow here overall, but the tool call right now, we don't have a lot of docs, but you want to see what actually gets sent back. And as I said, play with that chunk size, play with your model embeddings, and again, with evaluations, which we'll cover. You might want to test different embedding models. You might want to test other different prompts and compare. That's a very important part of being an AI engineer, which I have to cover. But this is it. This is what you want to start thinking about and doing. So I hope you got something out of this. I can't think of if there's anything else I need to cover. If there is, I hope you ask questions in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer them. All right, that's it for this week's episode of Agentic Reg with Azure AI Search. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you enjoyed that demo of loading thousands of documents and how we would do this in production and how we would test. Now, we'll probably need to do some more evaluation, so we still have a lot to cover. So if I were you, I would click that like and subscribe button down there so you don't miss out. I had fun doing this. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you next time.